everybody, it's Emily at Arc Schooling, and I bought a lot of books, so let's talk about them. I have about like 28, I think, books here. I sort of divided them up into like why I bought them. This video is probably going to be sort of chaotic because I have a feeling in the next little bit children are going to start coming downstairs because right now it is like 8:45. My goal was to do this first thing in the morning so that I could get it out of the way, put the books away, and then we have just a lot of things to do this weekend. So with all that, let's just get started. Some of these books I bought for Regina, my 11-year-old. Just buying things that I think she would enjoy. I picked up This Is Just a Test by Madeline Rosenberg and Wendy Wan Long Shang, and this is middle grade about a boy who is half Chinese, half Jewish. And she's half Jewish, and I thought she would appreciate a story like this, and I don't really know a whole lot about it, but when I saw that was the premise, it's a middle grade about a boy who's half Chinese and half Jewish, I thought, that sounds interesting, we should read that. I don't know if this is a read aloud, if this is something she's going to read on her own, I just thought it sounded interesting. Then she loves graphic novels, so I picked up When Stars Are Scattered by Victoria Jameson and Omar Mohammed, and this is, what is this? This is about refugees, I believe, in a refugee camp in Kenya. I think they left Uganda? Maybe it's Somalia. I'm not sure. It's a graphic novel for middle grade, and it helps with our around the world reading project that she's doing right now. So this takes place in Kenya, so we would count it as that, even though I'm pretty sure that they're from Somalia or Uganda. I'm not sure which. I feel like it's Somalia though. So I'm excited to read this with her because I just think it's going to be a really interesting story, and she hasn't read anything quite like this before. I finally picked up Ghost Squad. I've been wanting to get this book for ages. This is by Claribel A. Ortega. This is a ghost story, so my plan is to save it for October, and we'll do this as our like October Halloween read aloud. I don't really know a lot about this though, besides that it's a ghost story, that they live in Florida, in St. Augustine, which that's the other thing I thought she would be interested in because her grandparents recently moved to Florida and they live very close to St. Augustine and have talked about it with her before. So when I saw that too, that was the other thing that made me want to get this. So this is sort of like a Ghostbusters adventure taking place in Florida. We're very interested in reading this. I have 3 books here that I picked up as sort of a morning basket idea that I've been wanting to add some new things to our morning basket for when school starts in the fall. And so I have 3 books here that are potentials for that. The first one I just sort of stumbled upon, and that is Dictionary for a Better World, Poems, Quotes, and Anecdotes from A to Z by Irene Latham and Charles Waters. And I just think this would be a great addition to a morning basket because it's very easy to like just read a spread or a page a day. So it just, for example, Acceptance, it's got some art, it has a poem, some quotes and ideas to try. So there's just equality, laughter. So it follows the alphabet. So I just think this would be a fun addition for a morning basket. We could do a word a week, talk about it, like make that the weekly theme, that sort of thing. And I think it would work with a pretty wide range of ages too. We're doing a sort of nature thing this year. She's gotten really into the show Naked and Afraid and keeps talking about wanting to live in the wild and learn skills for that. So I'm like, why don't we start with nature study and build from there? So I found this book and I thought it would be kind of a fun read to do. And this is Can You Hear the Trees Talking? Discovering the Hidden Life of the Forest by Peter Wohlleben. And it's gorgeous. The pictures in here are just beautiful to look at. And there's a lot of information about trees and ecosystems and animals that live in trees and all of those things. So I think this would be a pretty interesting read. I don't know exactly what we're doing with the nature study yet. We'll talk more about that later as I develop it in my mind as to what we're going to do. But I at least have that. And then the other book I got for a morning basket edition is Big Ideas for Young Thinkers. This is 20 Questions About Life and the Universe by Jemiah Wilson. And this is sort of a philosophy type thing. So like, what happens when we die? What is gender? What is beauty? So it just gives us something to think about, big thoughts to chew on and talk about and discuss. So it's secular, and I'm very excited to start reading through this with her. I have a couple things that I bought for the level 6 update. I think there was actually more. I just don't know where I put them or when I bought them. I just like have been buying things for level 6 for a while now, so I don't even know what I bought when and what I've already shown you and what I haven't. Now, I think most of the stuff in this pile probably isn't actually going to make it into the level. I buy things sometimes like in groups, and one of those things will end up in and then the others won't. I don't know. So with that caveat, don't buy things until I announce the official book list. But I have Bread and Roses 2 by Catherine Patterson. I was looking for something on labor and women striking and suffrage and that sort of thing. So I have this. I've actually, after reading the reviews, I don't think this would be a good fit. A lot of people are saying it's very mature, one of her more mature books, that even though it's middle grade, it doesn't read like middle grade, that sort of thing. So I haven't actually read it yet, but I'm starting to lean away from that. But this is about a girl who's, I think her mother, I think they're Italian immigrants and working in the garment industry, I believe. Her mother's on strike. Then there's a boy whose father goes on strike, and it's their experiences as the kids of these parents dealing with like what that means to them, how that affects them, that sort of thing. So I just don't know yet. I'm leaning more towards this one, actually. This is Margaret Peterson Haddock's book, Uprising. And this is about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. And it's told from multiple perspectives, and it's Russian Jewish immigrants as well as Italian immigrants, and so there's a lot going on in the book, and I'm very interested in reading it. I've heard a lot of really good things, so this is probably what will end up in the level. Maybe. Then I was looking for something with Asian American that wasn't Chinese, because I already had a lot of stuff about Chinese Americans in the level, and I ended up finding Unidentified Suburban Object by Mike Jung. I've only read a little bit of it so far. This is about a girl who is a Korean American, and I only got a couple chapters in, but I was not in love with it. I don't know, the main protagonist, it was just not a nice person, and I don't know if that improves throughout the book, if she grows and becomes better. I don't know, but initially something about her was rubbing me the wrong way. And this is middle grade, and she's basically like frustrated because people lump her in with all Asians, or they stereotype her like, oh, you're only good at math because you're Asian, that sort of thing. So I definitely do want to continue reading it though, and I love the cover. I just think that's really cute. It's very bright and fun looking. So I do want to continue reading this, but I just don't think it's going to end up in the level. I have The Red Umbrella by Cristina Diaz Gonzalez, and this is about the communist revolution in Cuba, and I think it has to do with a girl and a boy, a brother and sister, being sent to the States alone, and them adjusting to living in America and that sort of thing, I think. I'm going to have to read it, but it came as a recommendation. I don't remember how it was recommended to me now though, but I bought it based on a recommendation, and we'll see what happens. I don't know. it might end up in level 6, but it also might not. And then the last one I have in that pile is Mercy Suarez Changes Gears by Meg Medina. Honestly, I bought this because the cover was just so inviting and happy and yellow, and I really liked that. I don't even really remember what this is. It says, Mercy Suarez has never been like the other kids at Seaward Pines Academy. She doesn't have a big house or take fancy vacations. She's a scholarship student who lives with her extended family in 3 little houses they call La Quistas. And she knew 6th grade would be different, but she didn't know how different. And not just at school. Back at Las Quistas, her beloved grandfather has been acting strangely, and no one will tell Mercy what's going on. What will it take to make her family face the issue they've been avoiding? So, this sounds like a really interesting read. It's yellow. I don't know, honestly. I bought A Place to Belong by Cynthia Kadahata. I have a couple of her other books that I purchased. Weedflower, and I can't remember the other one. Kira, maybe, I think. And I bought those a while ago. I'm fairly certain Weedflower is going to be in level 6 update. But when I saw the premise of this book, I think this is her newest book, I got very excited. One of the things that I've been like dying to read more of is World War II, like post-World War II or during World War II, historical fiction that takes place in Japan or in Asia. And this is a story about a family who were living in America, Japanese Americans in America, but they were living in the internment camps during the war and felt betrayed by America and decided that they were going to go back to Japan. And when they went back to Japan, they went to their homeland of Japan, which was Hiroshima, and not knowing, I think, how bad it was actually going to be. And so this is a story about the girl in this family, Hanako, and the upheaval she's experiencing between the internment and then going to Japan and living there in Hiroshima and having the people there be not the most friendly towards you because this is a thing that America did and you just came from America as Americans. And so I'm very interested to read this and see what I think, because I've been looking for things like that. So I'm excited. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but I really want to. Then I believe I bought this because Shauna McGuire was hyping it on her Twitter. And I'm a sucker for a story that has Russian like overtones or like that takes place in Russia, Russian fantasy, that sort of thing. So this is Weave the Lightning by Corey L. Lee. And this is fantasy that takes place, I don't know if it's in Russia or if it's just a Russian-inspired, like, world. But it sounded great. Epic romance, revolution, strangeness, elemental magic, all of those things. So I don't read a ton of fantasy, but this sounds great. So I'm hoping that it's good. And I also really appreciate, and I wish more publishers would do this, that this is a new release and it came out in paperback first. Why is that not a thing? I much prefer reading paperbacks to hardcovers. I end up buying a lot of hardcovers because I want the book when it comes out, and that's just how they're published. But if that was an option to purchase as a paperback, I would do that. I don't remember what made me buy this. This is David Mogo Godhunter, and I will never be able to pronounce this author's name. Suyi Davies Okungboa, I think. And this, again, is, it's touted as a Nigerian Harry Dresden. This takes place in Africa. It says, Lagos will not be destroyed. The gods have fallen to earth in their thousands, and chaos reigns. Though broken and leaderless, the city endures. David Mogo, demigod and god hunter, has one task: capture 2 of the most powerful gods in the city and deliver them to the wizard gangster Lukman Ajala. No problem, right? That just sounds so interesting. I'm just excited. Also, this cover, again, is just beautiful. And I just think this sounds like a really interesting and different story. One of my most anticipated books this year. I have finally gotten my hands on, and that is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I really enjoy her books and how different they all are from each other. Like, she writes a different genre for every book she writes, and this is a Gothic story, and it's Gothic horror. And she's said repeatedly that this is dark, and I'm here for that. So it takes place in Mexico, and I'm excited to read it. I don't know. It's also just one of the most stunning book covers. I just love the colors. I'm a big fan of the jewel tones, so the green with like the burgundy color, I just love that. So I'm very excited to pick this up. I don't know a whole lot about the plot because I really like to go into these things sort of blind. So I really just know that it's Gothic horror, takes place in Mexico. I know I already like her writing because I've read some of her other books before. So I'm very, very excited for this. I have Hattie Big Sky by Kirby Larson. I sort of had bought this for level 6, but then decided it wasn't going to fit relatively quickly after buying it. But I still want to read it because this is a book that I've heard people talk about before. It makes it onto a lot of like book lists about must-reads for American history studies and that sort of thing. So I've never read it though. This takes place in, I think, yeah, in Montana in the like late 1800s. It's a pioneering family sort of story. It's one of those things that I feel like I should just read because I've heard of it so many times and have never read it. I have Mayhem by Estelle LaRue. This I bought because Kayla at Books and Lala was just talking about it and made it sound so intriguing that even though it was not on my radar in the slightest, I felt I had to have it. I think it's about a family, the mother and daughter anyway, who have this magic ability, but it has some comparisons to The Craft, to The Lost Boys. This takes place in the 80s and in a coastal town, and I'm very intrigued. I was excited when she said The Craft and Lost Boys. Those are two of my favorite movies, so I'm excited to see what I think of this. Also, she said her one complaint was that the first half was like a slow burn kind of story and then a lot of action in the second half. That doesn't sound like a complaint to me. That is what makes me want to pick it up because I often want the second half to move faster. Like once things are set in place, I want the story to roll. So I'm excited. I have Theilda Stories by Jewel Gomez. This is a vampire story. And it's African American vampires. I think it takes place starting in the 1850s in Louisiana, where the main character Gilda escapes slavery, finds herself mixed up at this, I think it's a brothel, with some women who are actually vampires, and she becomes one, and then the story just goes from there and like follows her life with these women. So I believe it's sapphic. It's vampires. I bought this with Sarah in mind because she's been complaining that there are not enough sapphic vampire stories, and the fact that it's that, and it's written by an African American, and we're all intrigued. So I'm also always looking for new vampire stories because I'm still waiting for like that perfect vampire story to happen. So we're looking forward to picking this up sometime soon. Regina made me pre-order this one. Goddess in the Machine by Laura Beth Johnson. I saw something about it. I think I was reading the synopsis out loud to, I don't know if I was talking to Sarah or Riley, and saying that it sounded like an interesting read. Regina was in the room. I was like, oh my gosh, you need to buy that. So Regina really wants to read this because it's sort of similar to the concept of Passengers, the movie. Like essentially this girl went into cryo sleep, was supposed to wake up 100 years later, but actually I think it's like a couple thousand years later when she wakes up, and the whole world has changed and they think she's some kind of a god. That's really all I know, and it does sound really interesting, but the fact that Regina was so excited about it, I was like, okay, fine, I'll pre-order it. But it's YA, so I don't know if she'll actually read this anytime soon, but she would like me to pre-read it very soon so she can try to read it as soon as possible because she thinks it sounds amazing. I recently read We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee. That is her newest book. It hasn't come out yet. I have the ARC. and I loved it and immediately needed to read more of her stuff. So I bought The Reader. This is the first book in her fantasy trilogy. So I'm a little nervous because, like I said, I don't really do a lot of fantasy, especially YA fantasy. Usually doesn't work for me. But I loved her writing so much in We Are Not Free that I really want to read more of her writing. So I have this. I don't really know a whole lot about it besides that it has to do with I think it's a post-literate society. Like, people just don't know how to read anymore. Only a few people can. And I believe it has to do, like, they have some kind of ability that gives them the power to read, perhaps. I'm probably making that up. I don't know. But I know it has to do with people who don't know how to read. It just said, this is a book. You are the reader. Look close. There's magic here. In Sophia's world, reading is unheard of, but everything changes when she finds the book. It is the one thing that can save her. It is the one thing that can destroy her. And it's the first book in a trilogy. I only bought the first book because, like I said, YA fantasy doesn't always work for me. So I didn't want to, like, go all crazy and buy the whole thing. So I will have to see what I think of this. I also recently read, what was it called? I'm Not Dying With You Tonight, I think. But I can't remember the name of the authors. And, well, I thought it was okay. I felt like it needed more. Like, it wasn't... I wanted it to do more. And then I went back and I remembered that Kayla at Books and Lala had recently done a video where she reviewed it. And she had the same kind of thoughts that I did. And then she recommended this book, Watch Us Rise by Renee Watson and Ellen Hagen, as that kind of a story with multiple perspectives of a white person and a black person. And, like, it has the things that I was missing from I'm Not Dying With You Tonight in this book. So this story is about Jasmine and Chelsea, who are best friends. They go to school in New York City and they're trying, I think this has a lot of the same similarities too with Moxie by Jennifer Mathau, I can't remember her name, where I believe they start some kind of a club for, like, women's empowerment and feminism. I don't really know more than that, honestly. But I was definitely excited because, like I said, I wanted I'm Not Dying With You Tonight to do more and to, like, not just sort of graze over discussions that could have been happening but didn't. So this apparently is much more meaty in that it does dig into those topics and, like, explore them more. So I'm very much excited to pick that up. Another book I bought that I've had on my radar for years, I feel. I think this has been out for a while. When did this come out? Yeah, this book came out in 2018 and I've known about it for at least that long. So I've just never picked it up and I finally decided to just do it, buy it. So I have A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney. I'm really, like, hesitantly excited about this book because, again, I don't always get fantasy. Like, I don't know. It takes me a long time to get into a fantasy world. But this one has such an interesting premise that I'm very interested. This is sort of like, I think I've heard her say, what if Buffy was the one that fell down the rabbit hole and ended up in Wonderland? What would that look like? And so this is like Alice in Wonderland meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I'm very much interested in reading that. I really like Alice in Wonderland, and I love Buffy. It's one of my favorite things, so I'm very, very, very interested. But also sort of nervous because I really want to like it, and I'm afraid that I won't. But I hope it's good. I also have Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. This is the middle grade / young adult reader version of Stamped. And I've been really interested in reading this for a while. So I'd heard about it back in, when did it come out? In January, I think. And I should have bought it then, but I didn't. And then when I went to buy it in, when did I try to buy this? Early June, I think, and then it was back ordered everywhere. So I finally got my hands on a copy. This might end up a school book we do this year. I don't know. We'll see how the school year rolls along. I don't even know what we're doing, really. I haven't had time to really think too hard about that. So we're going to be doing that soon, though. I need to make a plan. But I'm very interested in reading this. what is the one I have? We Are Not Equal, I think, is the book I used in level 12 that I loved. I think that one was the young adult version of White Rage, I believe. I might be getting that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the young adult version of White Rage. This is the young adult version of Stamped. So I'm interested to see how they compare, because I really liked We Are Not Yet Equal. So I'm curious to see what I think of this. I bought The Silence of Bones by June Her. I think I heard Reagan at Peruse Project talking about this, and I was just really intrigued. This is a story that takes place in Korea. I think it's like a murder mystery in 1800 Korea. And that's really all I know about it. I'm very intrigued though, because I love reading about Asian countries and cultures and different time periods in their history, because that's not a thing we learned about in school. So I'm really always interested in reading more about that kind of stuff. So I've heard good things, but I really don't know too much about it, because again, this is kind of a book I want to go into sort of blind. I have, finally, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green, another one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I don't know when we're going to start reading this. Soon, I hope, because I'm just dying to know what happens next. I loved An Absolutely Remarkable Thing and have been anxiously awaiting the sequel for a while. So I think we read it exactly a year ago, and it's got multiple perspectives this time, which I'm really excited to see how that works, and to see if Hank Green can pull it off, because that's a hard thing to do, is to get the voices to sound different enough that you don't get confused. So I'm very excited. I have Making Our Way Home, The Great Migration and the Black American Dream by Blair Imani. Again, I think I had originally bought this thinking I would use it in level 6, but then I decided it was just not going to fit. It was just too much. I had too many things. And so I just want to read this now. I think it'll be an interesting read. It's got pictures. So this would be a good thing to supplement if you wanted to add more on this topic. I think it might be a little bit too much for level 6. It might be a little too advanced, but I guess it depends on the child and stuff. So I don't know. I still want to read it though. I've heard good things about it. We are almost to the end here. I have From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. This is middle grade, about a girl who, I think it has to do with the criminal justice system. Her father is in prison and she's working to find out, I think, hold on. Yeah. She thinks her father might actually be innocent, and so she's trying to help figure out how to help her father. So there's a lot in here about the criminal justice system, but at a middle grade level. So I'm very intrigued by this. This is another book that I really wanted to find a spot for in level 6, but I just don't know if I'll be able to make that happen. But regardless, I really want to read it, and probably definitely going to read this with my 11-year-old. And the last book I want to talk about is Escape to Gold Mountain, A Graphic History of the Chinese in North America by David H.T. Wong. This is a graphic novel. So I love graphic novels that are nonfiction. I don't read a ton of them because they're expensive and I don't buy them a lot of the time, but this just it caught my eye a while ago. I saw this originally when I was writing level 12, and at that time I could not get a copy of it. I think it was out of print. I think it might be back in print now, I'm not sure. But I had bought a used copy just because I really wanted to read it, and it got lost and I never received it. And I ended up getting a refund, and I was just really bummed about it because I really wanted to read this. And then recently it occurred to me to go check on it again and see if perhaps I could maybe get a different copy, or maybe it was in print, and I was finally able to get something. So I have it. I'm going to read this. I'm really excited about it. So this is definitely something I really want to pick up sooner rather than later. I've made my stack. It's gigantic, and I'm a little bit scared that it's going to fall. Okay, so here's all the books that I bought in June and July, mostly July. I went on sort of a kick. I have zero willpower. I don't know. I kept, I need one book for this thing, but since I'm already here and I'm buying this one book, I'm also going to buy these other 4 books. Like, that just kept happening, and it turned into this, which is beautiful though. Like, I'm gonna have to do a purge soon. I was originally gonna do, like, for every book I hauled, I was gonna unhaul a book, but then the pile got too big and that video would have taken hours to film, so I was like, yeah, that's not happening. But I do plan on doing a relatively large purge very soon. I bought a lot of books, and I'm glad you hung out with me for a while to chat about them. I don't know when I'm going to have time to film again. It's just been chaos here, but I will hopefully see you guys relatively soon. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy reading! Bye!